attorneys issue rare public response to Pierre Poilievre's attack on the Freedom Convoy prosecution. And let us all just stop and remember that a woman who joined ISIS with the intent of marrying an ISIS fighter and then providing to them children to be the next generation of ISIS fighters, after we all know what ISIS did to Christians and Yazidis. They had slave markets, they were burning them alive, human slavery of all the kinds. I'm trying to keep us on YouTube here. She saw that and she's like, you know what? Where do I sign up, sister? And she went over there and she got 1 day in jail, a sleepover.
A sleepover.
And so the Ontario Crown Attorneys Association primarily targets remarks by conservative politicians who criticize prosecutors for pursuing what they called excessively harsh sentences in the Freedom Convoy case. Yeah, but you did. It said a provincial prosecutors association, Doug Ford's Crown Prosecutors, has taken the rare step of issuing a public response to what it describes as attacks on the independence of the prosecutorial system and the rule of law. I believe their attempts to sentence these guys to 7 and 8 years, respectively. Tamara Leach and Chris Barber, I'll say it in the way that I said the sentences, plus crushing Big Red Chris's truck and his livelihood. I think that draws the administration of justice in this country into disrepute.
Absolutely correct. And what we have here is Crown prosecutors who are so insulated from regular feedback that any feedback feels like an attack on them. And the truth of the matter is, we elect our politicians to talk about things like this. And if it's not for the politicians making the laws that the Crown prosecutors then apply to the population, that, like, all of these things are interconnected. Of course, politicians should be able to and should talk about ongoing issues in our justice system, but that we have this precious group of our judiciary who absolutely consider themselves to be above reproach.
Yeah,
that's right. But they consider themselves to be above reproach. How dare you talk about the hallowed ground that we tread upon? Well, you work for the people. And if you're doing a poor job, or if you're being malicious or vindictive, then you deserve that public feedback. Like these poor, this poor association. I bet they had a struggle session after. I bet they had a group hug after this.
These are the comments from Poilievre that they took umbrage with. Let's get this straight. This is what Poilievre put on Twitter, X. Let's get this straight. While rampant violent offenders are released hours after their most recent charges, and anti-Semitic rioters vandalize businesses, terrorize daycare centers, and block traffic without consequence, the Crown wants 7 years prison time for a charge of mischief for Leach and Barber? How is this justice? Yeah, I mean...
Nothing about that is untrue.
No,
nothing
and the
about
choice,
that is untrue.
If the prosecutors don't want us to talk about them, I mean, why even have a justice minister who oversees them then? Right? Like, why even have that? If you don't want any oversight, political oversight, then why do we talk about crime and justice during election campaigns? It is an issue the public faces, and they need to come to terms with their role in fueling the crime statistics in this country, because they are part of the catch and release problem in this country. When you have cops actually doing the job in some of these communities, rounding people up and putting them before a justice of the peace, and the justice of the peace says, you know what, we'll let you out on $50, but no cash bail, and there's absolutely no objection from the Crown, or the Crown drops a bunch of charges, even though the charges would stick, to make a plea deal to get some things off their plate. We get to talk about that, because we as the public have to live with the consequences of letting these recidivists out on the street.
Yes, the purpose of having laws is to maintain order. And when those laws and when the judiciary creates chaos, well, then no, that's when we need our elected politicians to step in and say, judiciary, you guys need to get your heads on, right? Because you're out of step with what the population expects of you. And these are people that are just not accustomed to having any public feedback. They are just not.
Yeah, like, how about your decisions are fueling the escalating crime rates. When you don't object to these people being let out with no cash bail, or objecting to them getting bail at all and arguing against bail, when they don't pursue with the heavy hand of the law the actual bad guys, but then they pursue with the heavy hand of the law people like Tamara and Chris, of course we are going to think that it is politically motivated, while the rest of us are dealing with our cars being stolen all the time.
But then what adds insult to injury is that they pretend to be above it all.
Oh yes, how dare you?
We cannot be politically swayed, you see, because we are the arbiters. We are the arbiters of what is good and fair and just in the world. When really, if you're just a regular Canadian and you're seeing them pull these punches on the public while not doing their jobs and not fulfilling the mandate of justice, creating and maintaining order, well, you got a lot to answer for. You can just add, the Canadian justice system to the long list of public institutions that are beclowning themselves with their own craziness.
I've got a particular opinion on this because the former Crown on the Tamara Leach case went after me personally and tried to pursue me for contempt after a journalist in Ottawa made a politically motivated attack against me and then tried to say that I breached a court order. And they tried to have me drugged to Ottawa. And the prosecutor there conspired with the journalist there to, try to have me hauled before the court. Thankfully, the judge said, no, whatever.
And we think that
whatever contempt there was mitigated. And anyway,
and so we are to believe that this is all fair and just. Sure.
Sure. When they're collaborating with liberal journalists to go after the conservative ones who are covering these cases, I know that these Crown prosecutors are not above politics. I was very nearly a victim of it myself. But Ezra didn't let anything bad happen to me.
Attaboy.
Yep.